The schoolyard buzzed with life, laughter, chatter, and the sounds of sneakers scraping on concrete. But in one corner on a worn wooden bench, a boy sat alone. His head rested on his knees, and his messy hair covered most of his face. No one seemed to notice him, not the teachers or the other students running around. Barron Trump stood at a distance watching the boy. It was his first week at this new school, and while he was still adjusting, something about the boy on the bench tugged at him. He wasn't crying, but the sadness in his posture was louder than words. "Who's that?" Barron whispered to a classmate beside him. "Oh, that's Sam," the boy replied nonchalantly. "He's weird. Nobody talks to him." Weird. That word didn't sit well with Barron. He glanced back at Sam and saw him tugging on his oversized hoodie, trying to shield himself from the world. The bell rang and everyone rushed to class, but Barron hesitated. As the crowd disappeared, he made a decision. This wasn't something he could ignore. Little did Barron know, his choice to care would change more than just one life. The next day, Barron looked for Sam in the schoolyard. There he was on the same bench, head down and hands fidgeting with a small worn-out book. Taking a deep breath, Barron walked over. "Hey," he said, his voice soft but steady. Sam didn't look up. For a moment, Barron wondered if he should walk away, but something inside him told him to stay. He sat down on the bench, leaving space between them. "What's that you're reading?" Barron asked, trying to sound casual. Sam's fingers stopped moving. He hesitated before lifting the book slightly, revealing the title. It was an old storybook with frayed edges. "I like stories," Barron said, smiling. "They help me escape when things feel heavy." Sam finally looked at him. His eyes were red, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Do they help you?" he whispered, his voice so faint Barron almost missed it. Barron nodded. "Yeah. Do they help you too?" Sam blinked, and for the first time his lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "Sometimes," he replied. That whisper of connection was small, but it felt monumental. The next morning, Barron found a crumpled piece of paper in his locker. Confused, he unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, but clear. "Thank you for sitting with me yesterday. No one's done that before. Sam." Barron felt a lump in his throat. He looked around the hallway, wondering if Sam had left the note. But the boy was nowhere in sight. During lunch, Barron spotted Sam in the cafeteria, sitting at the father's table. He wasn't eating, just poking at his food with a plastic fork. Barron grabbed his tray and walked over. "Mind if I join you?" Barron asked, smiling. Sam looked surprised but nodded. As they ate, they didn't talk much, but the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. Toward the end of lunch, Barron noticed something strange. A group of kids at another table were whispering and pointing at Sam. They laughed, not even trying to hide it. Barron's fists clenched. Sam's face turned red as he stared at his plate. In that moment, Barron knew this wasn't just about sitting with someone. It was about standing up for him no matter the cost. The cruel laughter echoed in Barron's ears long after lunch ended. He couldn't believe how openly the kids teased Sam. They mimicked the way he walked, exaggerated his shy mannerisms, and whispered nasty comments as he passed by. Sam never fought back. He simply shrank into himself, his head hanging lower with every insult. "Why don't you say something?" Barron asked as they walked to their next class. Sam shrugged. "It's easier not to." Barron stopped walking. "That's not okay. They shouldn't treat you like that." Sam looked away, his face unreadable. "It's always been like this," he mumbled. Barron didn't understand. How could everyone just let this happen? He clenched his fists, feeling a deep anger that made his chest ache. That evening, Barron sat at his desk, staring at his homework, but unable to focus. The memory of Sam's hunched shoulders and downcast eyes haunted him. He knew something had to change. The next day, Barron stood taller as he entered school. He wasn't just going to sit with Sam anymore. He was going to make sure no one laughed at him again. But Barron didn't realize just how much his actions would cost him. It started small. Barron sat with Sam at lunch again, this time meeting the mocking stares with his own unflinching gaze. The bullies noticed, and their whispers turned toward him. "Why are you hanging out with him?" one boy sneered as Barron walked past. "He's not worth it," another muttered, loud enough for Sam to hear. Sam tugged at Barron's sleeve. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "Yes, I do," Barron replied firmly. By the end of the day, Barron found himself the target of pranks and snide remarks. Someone stuffed his locker with trash. Another person tripped him in the hallway. But what hurt most was the isolation. His classmates, even the ones he thought were friendly, avoided him. It was as if being kind to Sam had made Barron an outcast too. That night, Barron sat alone in his room, wondering if he'd made the right choice. Was it worth losing his friends? He thought about Sam's crumpled note, the quiet gratitude in his eyes. Barron clenched his jaw. It was worth it. Kindness wasn't about being comfortable, it was about doing the right thing, no matter the cost. The next morning, Barron arrived at school early. As he approached the bench where Sam usually sat, he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. Sam was there, but he wasn't alone. Someone had scribbled cruel words across the bench in black marker. "Loser. Freak. Stay away." Sam sat with his head down, his fingers tracing the hateful words. Barron felt a wave of anger and sadness crash over him. Without a word, he pulled a bottle of water from his backpack and grabbed a tissue. He knelt by the bench and began scrubbing at the marks. Sam looked up, startled. "What are you doing?" Sam asked. "Fixing this," Barron replied through gritted teeth. Sam hesitated, then joined him. Together they scrubbed until the words faded into nothing. When they finished, Sam whispered, "Thanks." Barron looked him in the eye. "You don't deserve this. No one does." For the first time, Sam smiled, a real genuine smile. It was small, but it lit up his face in a way Barron hadn't seen before. What neither of them knew was that someone had been watching from the shadows, and this moment would soon set off a chain reaction neither of them could have imagined. By lunchtime, whispers filled the school halls. A few students had seen Barron and Sam cleaning the hateful words off the bench that morning. Some thought it was brave, while others mocked them behind their backs. "Why does he care so much?" one girl sneered. "Sam's just weird." But not everyone agreed. In the cafeteria, a girl named Mia hesitated before walking over to their table. She carried an extra sandwich in her hand. "Hey," she said shyly, placing the sandwich in front of Sam. "You can have this. My mom made too much." Sam stared at her, stunned. "Thanks," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Barron smiled at Mia. "That was really nice of you." Mia shrugged, her cheeks turning pink. "It's nothing. I know what it's like to feel left out." Sam's eyes glistened as he took a bite of the sandwich. For the first time, he didn't feel invisible. The act seemed small, but it sparked something. Other students began to notice Sam differently. Some even started saying hello in the hallways. Slowly but surely, the icy walls around him began to thaw. But not everyone was happy about the change. As more students began warming up to Sam, the bullies grew angrier. They couldn't stand seeing him smile. One afternoon, as Barron and Sam walked to their lockers, they found them covered in graffiti. Words like "loser" and "pathetic" were scrawled across the metal doors. Sam froze, his face pale. Barron placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let them win," he said firmly. The crowd gathered, some snickering, others looking uncomfortable. Mia stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger. "This isn't okay," she shouted. "Whoever did this is just a coward." The bullies stood at the back, smirking. One of them, Jake, crossed his arms. "Why do you care so much? It's not like he matters." Barron stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. "Everyone matters, including Sam. You don't get to decide who's worth something." The crowd fell silent. Jake glared but didn't respond. The tension was thick, as Barron grabbed a rag from his backpack and started cleaning the lockers. Mia and a few others joined him. Sam watched, his eyes filling with tears. He realized something that day. He wasn't alone anymore. But the bullies weren't done. They had one final plan to break him. It happened after school in the parking lot. Barron and Sam were walking together when Jake and his group cornered them. "Think you're a hero, huh?" Jake sneered, shoving Barron against a car. "Leave him alone," Sam shouted, surprising even himself. Jake turned to Sam, his eyes dark with anger. "Or what? What are you gonna do?" Barron stepped between them. "He doesn't have to do anything. You're just scared because you know what you're doing is wrong." Jake's fist clenched. For a moment it looked like he might throw a punch, but a teacher's voice rang out from across the lot. "What's going on here?" Mr. Peterson, the gym coach, approached quickly, his face stern. Jake and his group backed off, muttering excuses. As they walked away, Jake shot Barron and Sam a glare that promised this wasn't over. Barron turned to Sam. "Are you okay?" Sam nodded, but his hands trembled. "Why do you keep helping me? It's just making things harder for you." Barron smiled gently. "Because you deserve it. And because kindness is stronger than hate." Sam didn't respond, but a single tear slid down his cheek. He knew Barron was right. What neither of them realized was that the worst and best was yet to come. That evening, Sam sat in his dimly lit room, staring at the walls covered with drawings he had made over the years. Each sketch told a story he could never say out loud. Heroes overcoming battles, small victories against towering villains. But tonight, he didn't feel like a hero. He felt small and powerless. His mind replayed the confrontation in the parking lot. Jake's words still echoed in his ears, sharp and cruel. Sam's fingers trembled as he reached for a piece of paper and began to draw. He sketched Barron, standing tall and fearless, facing off against Jake. In the drawing, Barron wore a cape, a symbol of strength Sam wished he had. As he shaded the lines, tears blurred his vision. Why would someone like Barron care about someone like him? Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Barron. "You okay? Remember, you're not alone." Sam stared at the words. They felt like a lifeline in the storm. For the first time in a long while, Sam allowed himself to hope. He folded the drawing carefully and placed it under his pillow. He didn't know it yet, but tomorrow, that simple piece of paper would change everything. The next morning, Sam walked into school with the drawing tucked in his backpack. He hadn't planned on showing anyone, but something told him it was important. When he reached the bench, Barron was already there, waiting. "Hey," Barron said with a smile. Sam hesitated before pulling out the drawing. "I made this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Barron unfolded the paper and stared at it. The detail was stunning. In the drawing, he stood like a superhero, cape billowing in the wind, protecting Sam from the bullies. "Sam, this is amazing," Barron said, his voice filled with awe. Sam looked down, his cheeks red. "It's just something I do when I feel scared." Barron grinned. "This isn't just something. You have a gift." Before Sam could reply, Mia walked up and saw the drawing. Her eyes widened. "Did you draw that?" Sam nodded shyly. "This is incredible," she exclaimed. "You should show everyone." Sam's heart raced. The thought of sharing his work terrified him. But Mia's excitement, coupled with Barron's encouragement, sparked something inside him. For the first time, Sam felt like maybe, just maybe, his voice mattered. By lunchtime, word had spread about Sam's drawing. Mia had snapped a picture and posted it on social media, tagging Sam and Barron. The post quickly gained traction, with students commenting on Sam's talent. Sam sat at the table, his heart pounding. "Why did you post it?" he asked Mia, his voice shaky. Because people need to see how amazing you are, she replied simply. Barron nodded. She's right, Sam. This is your chance to show everyone the real you. But not everyone was impressed. Across the cafeteria, Jake and his crew sat fuming. So now he's an artist, Jake scoffed. What a joke. As Barron and Sam left the cafeteria, Jake stepped in front of them. Hey Picasso, he sneered. Think you're better than everyone now. Sam froze, but Barron stepped forward. Back off, Jake, he said firmly. Jake's smirk faltered, but he leaned in closer. This isn't over, he whispered. The tension hung heavy as Jake walked away. Sam felt like he couldn't breathe. Barron placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Don't let him get to you. You're stronger than you think. Sam nodded, but deep down he wondered if that was true. The school hall buzzed with chatter about Sam's drawing. By now students were not only admiring his work but also talking to him in ways he'd never experienced before. He felt a flicker of hope, but it didn't last long. That evening, Sam returned home to find the drawing shredded and thrown across his room. His heart dropped as he realized what had happened. His older brother, who often mocked his quietness, stood in the doorway smirking. Stop pretending like you're special, his brother sneered. You think a stupid drawing makes you important. Sam fought back tears, his fists trembling. He didn't say a word. Instead, he picked up the torn pieces and tried to tape them back together. But no matter how carefully he worked, the tears were still visible. At school the next day, Barron noticed Sam's puffy eyes. What happened? He asked softly. Sam hesitated, then pulled out the taped-up drawing. Barron's face hardened. Who did this? Sam shook his head. It doesn't matter. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just wasting my time. Barron's voice was firm. Don't ever say that. You're not wasting your time. You're inspiring people. Sam wasn't sure he believed him, but Barron's unwavering support made him feel a little less alone. The school's art teacher, Mrs. Rivera, heard about Sam's drawing from Mia. She approached Sam with an idea that terrified and excited him. I'm organizing an art show, Mrs. Rivera explained. I want your work to be featured. Sam froze. Me? But what if people don't like it? Mrs. Rivera smiled warmly. Sam, art isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about sharing your heart. And your work has a lot to say. With Barron and Mia's encouragement, Sam hesitantly agreed. He spent every spare moment creating new pieces, pouring his emotions onto the paper. His drawings told stories of pain, hope, and resilience. Stories that resonated deeply with anyone who saw them. On the night of the art show, Sam stood nervously in the corner of the gym, which had been transformed into a gallery. Barron stayed by his side, offering quiet support. One by one, students and teachers stopped in front of Sam's work. Some whispered words of admiration, while others stood silently, visibly moved. But when Jake and his friends entered, Sam's chest tightened. He braced himself for their ridicule. To his surprise, Jake said nothing. He stared at one of Sam's pieces, a drawing of a boy sitting alone, surrounded by darkness, and walked away without a word. The next day, something unexpected happened. Jake approached Sam in the hallway. Sam's first instinct was to run, but he forced himself to stay. Hey, Jake muttered, looking unusually uncomfortable. Sam didn't respond. He couldn't read the expression on Jake's face. I saw your drawing, Jake continued. The one with the kid sitting alone. It reminded me of someone. Sam blinked, confused. Who? Jake hesitated, then looked away. Me, when I was younger. The hallway fell silent as the weight of Jake's words sank in. Sam didn't know what to say. Jake shifted awkwardly. I'm sorry for everything. I guess I didn't want anyone to see how messed up I was, so I took it out on you. Sam's eyes filled with tears. He had never imagined Jake would say something like this. I forgive you, he said quietly. Jake looked up, surprised. You do? Sam nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance. For the first time, Jake smiled, a small, genuine smile. Thanks, man. As Jake walked away, Barron appeared by Sam's side. See? Small actions, big changes, he said with a grin. Sam felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. The school was abuzz with excitement. Mrs. Rivera announced that Sam's artwork would be showcased during the upcoming assembly, and everyone was invited. Sam felt a mix of pride and fear. What if people laughed at him? What if they didn't understand his drawings? Barron stayed close, reminding him he wasn't alone. Your story is important, Sam. You're going to make a difference. The auditorium was packed on the day of the assembly. Sam sat backstage, clutching a sketch pad tightly. His heart pounded as Mrs. Rivera introduced him to the crowd. Today, we're proud to feature the work of a talented student whose art speaks volumes about courage, kindness, and hope. Please welcome Sam. Sam stepped onto the stage, the spotlight blinding. He looked at the sea of faces, some familiar, some not. His hands trembled as he began to speak. My drawings come from a place of loneliness and pain, but they're also about finding light in the dark. Sam said, his voice shaking. Someone showed me kindness when I needed it most, and it changed everything. As the crowd erupted into applause, Sam saw Jake clapping in the front row. For the first time, he believed he deserved to be seen. After the assembly, something extraordinary happened. Students who had once ignored Sam came up to congratulate him. Some even opened up about their own struggles. Your drawing reminded me of when I used to sit alone, one student said, her eyes wet with tears. It's like you told my story, another added. The change was palpable. The school, once divided by cliques and silent walls, began to feel more like a community. Even Jake and his friends started making amends. They joined Barron and Sam during lunch, apologizing for their past actions. Though it wasn't easy, Sam forgave them, knowing how powerful a second chance could be. Barron watched it all unfold with quiet pride. He had only meant to help one person, but his small act of kindness had created a ripple effect that changed the entire school. See what you did, Barron said, nudging Sam playfully. Sam smiled, tears in his eyes. We did it. Together. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The principal called Sam to her office a week later. Nervous, he walked in, only to find his parents, Barron, Mrs. Rivera, and a few classmates waiting for him. What's going on? Sam asked, his heart racing. The principal smiled warmly. Sam, your artwork has been selected for a statewide competition. You've inspired so many people here, and now you'll have the chance to inspire even more. Sam's mouth fell open in shock. Barron clapped him on the back. Told you, man. You're amazing. At the competition, Sam's work won first place. The audience gave him a standing ovation, and tears streamed down his face. For the first time, he felt truly seen and valued. Back at school, a mural was painted in Sam's honor. It featured his drawings alongside the words, "Kindness starts with one." As Sam stood in front of the mural, surrounded by friends, he whispered, "Thank you." To Barron, to Mrs. Rivera, and to himself, for never giving up. And that's the story of how one small act of kindness changed an entire community. If this story moved you,